Okay. And then the second type of people that you will be dealing with is direct recruiter. So direct recruiters are basically, they work for the company, they are the employee of the company that you'll be getting hired for. But they really do care about who they are talking to, because their reputation is on the line. They will be talking to your bosses, and your boss will give the requirement how they want in terms of the next person, what kind of skill set they're looking for, and what kind of question they should be asking even before the resume goes down to the boss, right? The manager. So your expectation from these guys is that if you get a call from direct recruiter, most likely they like your resume and most likely they want to proceed to the next round. So in this case, your summary alone is going to be good enough to impress this recruiter. But sometimes the question will be, coming from experience. Okay, tell me your day-to-day and things like that. Tell me this specific tool that you have on your resume, where you used it. So that's why you have to really, really know what's on your resume, right? The agency guys, right, what they do is that they're going to call you, they're going to ask you questions outright. The first thing is they're going to say, are you looking, right? Are you looking for new opportunity? And as soon as you said yes, then they will say, okay, what is the rate, right? It's gonna sound really weird, right? So right away, like, what is the rate that you're looking for? And in this case, you'll be shocked, like, oh wow, he didn't ask me any question. Am I hired? He's talking about the money. The idea is that, again, these guys are a third party. They work for these guys. Okay. So these guys are gonna be talking to you to make sure that you okay with the rate, you okay with the location. If it's a remote, then obviously it's remote. You're okay with the work hour and all of that, right? Like very less, I would say, very surface level information they will collect from you. Once you said, yes, I'm okay with all of these, and you said, okay, you know what, I want 50 an hour, hourly. But then this guy says, no, what about the yearly? So, okay, I want 95K yearly, for example. They will take this information and they will submit your resume, all right? Once the submission of the resume goes, the next place is going to be direct recruiter. So this guy is going to get the resume. He will then pass that on to your, pass that on to the manager, the actual manager. So the actual manager may get 10 or 15 resumes for the day. And from there, he will start to talk to each and every single one of them. So the 10 resume, again, these guys probably send like 20, 30 resumes. And from there, these guys will also go through the resumes and pick like 10 or 15. So look at your odds at this point, right? So it's the understanding that you need to have here is that just because you apply to 50 jobs, it doesn't mean that you will get called from all 50. So just expectation needs to be there. And at least patience has to be there, because being in the market, there are people that will end up getting a job within the first week, second week, or third week, and there are people who will also take 1 month, 2 months, and 3 months, even sometimes goes to 6 months. Now, how can you increase your chance of getting a job sooner than later, or sooner than everybody else? It's by bringing the interview, right? So if you bring, let's say, 1 interview per week, your chance of getting the job on the 3rd week is really, really high, right? And I'm not talking about interview like, okay, talking to this guys and talking to this guys. I'm talking about after passing this guy, right? The direct recruiter, you go into the manager round, all right? Manager and the team, whatever is the case. So as soon as you were able to go to the final interview and you have 3 per week, then I can assure you, maybe the 3rd week is going to be the week where you will be last talking to anybody for a job. So it takes 3 tries, because sometimes we are able to get it on the 2nd try, sometimes we're able to get it on the 1st, and then the 3rd one just for the luck, right? Just in case you didn't make it on the first 2. So just keep that in mind. Now, these guys, again, like for the agency guys, they're going to send you, these guys will probably send you emails all the time. So you'll probably be expected to get emails like, I would say, like anywhere between 30 to 40 emails, right? Daily. And it's not like you're applying for a job, but you're getting emails. Your next thing to do, and what is the best thing to do in this case, right? Once you get an email, you can't just ignore. And the other thing you cannot do is that write a reply to every single one of them, right? If you do that, that means you have all day writing emails, right? So in this case, what you will do, you'll create a nice template of the email. And on your first reply, obviously the first email from these guys will be a job description, right? So you look at the job description, you make sure this is the description that you're okay with. That means it's a QA opportunity, QA job, anything related to QA you want to take. If they send you anything else, like a doctor position, right? Like somebody looking for a physician and you said, yes, I'm, interested here. And then you start putting the template, it doesn't make sense, right? So make sure you look at the position and it's correct, and then you reply to him using your template. Only probably the name will change, and you want to say hi, and you want to address the recruiter and say, I read the job description. I feel like this is something that I am interested in. So for your review, I am attaching this resume, and please let me know if this job's still available, right? And you send that email. As soon as you send that email, this guy's going to call you right away. That's how it works, right? Now, if you miss the call, most likely you're not going to get a second call. And why is that case? Are they rude? What is what is the reason behind it? So these guys just sent out, let's say, hundreds of email, right? Including you. Whoever reach out to him first, or whoever he tried to call. So he's going to start making phone calls based on the reply. And let's say you didn't pick up, he'll go to the next person, right? He doesn't really care about, your resume. He doesn't really care about how good it looks. It's strictly business. He just want to get to somebody who's serious and who's looking for opportunity and who's really paying attention to emails as well as the phone, right? And there are various reasons, because this recruiter doesn't want somebody who's going to go silent after talking on the first day. And now he has to chase somebody down because, let's say I spoke to Evelina, and what happened in the very first day, she was very nice. She explained all of her work's experience, and it was really good. And I passed the resume to this guy, and this guy liked it. And then they have an interview set up with the manager. And now Evelina is not interested because maybe she decided to take a vacation, or maybe she decided not to even change the job situation, right? Maybe she wants to stay in the current job. And now this guy is like hanging right there. Now he has to find, not only that he has to go and find another person, but most importantly, he's going to look real bad in front of these guys, right? They're just going to say, okay, why didn't you look for somebody who is, actually looking for opportunity? So that's another reason you have to make sure when you talk to this guy, be as human as possible and explain your situation, why you're looking for a job, and how serious you are to make the move for the next position, right? If you say, maybe I'll take it, maybe this is something that I want to do, and then he's not gonna pass your resume to the next stage. So just make sure that you do the right thing. Now, when you send that email to this person, right, you got 30 to 40 emails per day. What you want to do on your email is you want to make sure that you reply with a resume. Okay, you want to reply with your updated resume. One of the reasons why you want to do that is because as soon as you reply saying I'm interested, what is he going to ask next? He's going to say, send me your updated resume. So you're really removing the need for him to ask you, right? He's just directly getting the resume. And the next thing he's going to do is that review the resume and say, okay, look, I feel like you're going to be, really suitable for this position. So let's move forward, right? So just make sure you always do that. The other thing is that these guys will make you go crazy too, because you're getting 30 to 40 plus you're going to get maybe 10, 15 calls daily from these guys. So do not misunderstand, because one of the thing is these guys will do is that you'll see like two agency calling for the same exact job. Let's say Chase is hiring, and all of a sudden agency one calling and say, hey, we're hiring. Are you interested for a client of ours called Chase? And then another agency calls and says, hey, we're hiring, one of our client is Chase, and the job description is this. So you cannot possibly go ahead and accept both, because now what's going to happen, double submission will lead to cancellation of your resume, right? The reason why this is going to be a conflict is because, let's say A and B both referred you for this job and you got hired. Now Chase is paying A, and then B is going to be upset. All right. And most likely create an issue, and then they're just gonna get rid of you, because they're just gonna say, okay, we don't want this candidate because it's an issue for us, right? They don't want to pay both, right? They want to just pay one person, and nobody's gonna be happy if they're not getting paid. So just keep that in mind whenever you realize that same position but then two different client, whoever you agreed with, you just stick to that person and you just tell them, sorry, I already spoke to another agency and they submitted me for this role, and that's it. When you talk to these guys, they're going to ask you for additional information. ID copy. Now I'm going to ask you guys a quiz question, right? You got the ID copy, it could be driver license, whatever is the case. They want your, let's say, SSN last 4 digit, right? They want your DOB, maybe not the full, but month and a day. Would you give it to them? And if you say yes, why and why not? Tell me. It's just logical question. You're applying for a job, just like any other job, right? So let's see. I'm talking for a while, so I'm just gonna ask you guys this question before I can give you guys what to do.
What's the question?
So I'm a recruiter for an agency, and I call you.
So you didn't catch COVID from me?
Oh, sorry, who was that? I guess okay.
I'm sorry. Can you repeat again? Sorry. Yeah.
The question is, I'm a recruiter, right?
Yes.
And I said, okay, I'm from ABC recruiting agency, and you agreed to maybe 50 an hour. And then I said, okay, so in order for me to proceed, give me a copy of your driver license, and then give me your last 4 digit of social security number and month and a day for your date of birth so I can submit.
I'll say the third party recruiter or the I shouldn't give them that. I should.
Okay, second party says the same. What are you gonna say?
I would say no.
No. Yeah.
Yeah, obviously, right? So
Yeah.
privacy is a responsibility of yours, right? Like, your data, your security. So that's one thing that I tell everybody. Sometimes it is gonna sound like really good, like, oh, we're gonna submit you. Trust me, this is our, direct client, and they will hire you. We just gotta submit you. We need this, right? So now ID copy, if you absolutely have to, you can also, what you can do, you can just use your iPhone, and you can erase some of the things that are sensitive, and you can just give them your name and just the picture, and that's it. And everything else can be, erased. So, but for me, if somebody calls me and they want ID copy, I tell them like, nope, sorry, I don't know where that information is going to be flowing throughout the internet. So if you want to submit me, it's fine. Otherwise, I'll go with another agency, right? That's it, right? So that's my answer, right? But if you absolutely have to, because there is no other way, the guy is being very convincing, then just censor some of this important information like your date of birth, your address, and things like that. Last 4 digit, what I usually do, because sometimes last 4 digit of your social is 100% necessary, is because they want to make sure that they're not double submitting you. So just create yourself a fake 4 digit number. So like, let's say 5989. And you want to stick to this number. This is not for background, check or anything. This is just for the recruiter. Once you get hired, you're gonna go through the general background check, and you're gonna enter the right information and all that stuff. This is just for them to check if you ever applied to the same position in same company, right? So there is no need for you to have the correct number, right? So just keep 140 and keep giving them the same. The moment you get hired, then you deal with the company directly when they are when the HR is reaching out, that's a different story, right? So for now, just to be safe, you don't have to give them this. If they're really, really insisting that's the only information they need, you can just give them a fake 4-digit for your own safety. Date of birth, month and a day. Again, like I said, month and a day probably doesn't matter because like they can guess any number, right? It's 30 days and then you have 12 months. So it's really doesn't matter. But also, normally these guys, direct recruiter will never ever ask you for this information, period, right? These guys will never ever ask, these guys. Now, if these guys ask, you have a choice to say, nope, I'm good. I will move on with another recruiter because there is going to be plenty of people calling it. Plenty. You don't have to miss the opportunity. Somebody else will call you for the same position. So you can always say, sorry, the information that you're asking for is very sensitive. I will not provide this unless, I get hired, right? So if I get hired, obviously I'm happy to provide this to the background check company and go from there, but I will not provide this right now. So you can say this and get it over with and just move on with the next recruiter, or you can do what I just said. So you got alternative as well, just in case if you find a position that you feel like you have to give it to them. So just keep that in mind. With the direct recruiter, right? So direct recruiter is going to sound like an interview. It is kind of an interview. So be ready for that interview because the direct recruiter will care about who they are talking to, right? They will have sense of humor. They will actually care about you. They will give you time to breathe while you, even if you ask a question or even if you answer a question, they will listen to you. These guys will not listen to you. They will directly hit the money, So as soon as you sound like you know what you're talking about right away, okay, how much do you want? Okay, are you okay with the location? All right, fine. I'm going to submit you right now. I sent you an email. Can you check? And then it's going to be like very instant from these guys. Now, when you do happen to go with this guys and you're submitting like 10, 15, 20, 30 application daily basis, the chances of getting one interview is like almost like none, right? For the week, right? It's because like they're dealing with way too many people. So if you get lucky, you will get it. I will not say ignore them, but I will also say your priority is this guys to begin with, right? Whenever you see somebody's emailing you and their email has the actual company name on it as a domain, you probably want to pay a bit more attention to those guys. Just keep that in mind. Okay, let me just mute some of you guys. Okay, that's good. So that's how you will be dealing with recruiters. Now you'll probably, again, you'll pick up the phone call. You're gonna say, this is how much I want, and the location, you can say I want remote right now, fully remote because so and so, right? Whatever is the case. But one of the advice that I will give it to you guys, especially those who can actually work from the office, you want to tell them that you will be fine working from the office, but the first month or two, you have to work remote. Like let's say there is no other position, but you're getting one position which is in the city. By the way, Amit, interesting story. One of our students took an interview for 911 dispatch. They're improving the call. I guess VoIP call, right? SIP call, actually, SIP call, protocols and all of that stuff. And I was there in the interview, and they were like, they pretty much gave him an offer, right? But he has to go and work on site because it's a city agency. So all right. So now there will be positions where there is no other choice that you'll have to work on site, but then if you can negotiate and get the first couple of months working from home, you will have the first 2 months to work with the company, but at the same time, you can look for another job. If you get it, you just move forward. You just basically leave the company who's gonna ask you to come on site, and that's it. So the idea is that in the very beginning, when you're out there looking for a new job, you should not say, no, because I don't want to go to the office, right? You can just say, yes, I can. I just need the first month because I have kids and I usually take them to school now. So I'm gonna need at least 2 months before I find a babysitter or whatever is the case, right? So just keep that in mind. You can also say something like this for another location. So it could be like Texas. Let's say they're hiring in Texas, right? And say, okay, this position is solid. I'm sure you'll get it, but it's in Texas. Then you'll say, well, I do need at least 3 months before I can start to make the move because yeah. So I need at least 3 months before I can move. Until then, I'll have to work remote because I have a lease, active lease in the current, apartment, whatever is the case. So now you get the job, you have 3 months to decide, or at least you have 3 months to find another opportunity before you have to move, right? In that 3 months, you'll learn a lot, right, from an actual position. But most importantly, what happens in the real world situation when you work for a company for 3 months and they give you training and all of that stuff, most likely they're gonna keep you as a remote. You'll talk to your manager, you'll tell him like, hey, look, I've been working remote for the last 3 months and I don't think I can move. So I'm gonna give you, the choice of doing whatever you need to do, but I think I can do my job very well from remote. And if if he's okay with it, then you're fine. But what happened is that in the past with my students, some of my students, is that they almost never, so far, never they heard a manager saying, nope, you have to come on site, right? Unless it's a state or government position, that's different, right? Government job and state jobs, it's not even up to the manager, right? It's the policy for the whole employment, the entire, department. So these are a few things. Like I said, you should never say no to a position. You want to go with it. And then as soon as you feel like, okay, I got the position, I'm going to start working, and then you can start to think about for the next opportunity. So recently somebody also in Florida, he got I think he was from the last batch, got a job and it was on site. He started going, and now it's been 3 months and he says, look, I'm going to start looking for new opportunity because I want to do remote. And I said, okay, that's fine. If you do find it, that's totally okay to make that jump, especially in tech field, especially in IT. The move happens like really fast for people. You'll see like in your team you joined and there are like 3 people are leaving or something, because everybody moves, right? As soon as you feel like you know your stuff, you'll see quickly you're just jumping from one position to the other in order to get better and better salary as well as also better positions. All right, with that said, any question before we go into today's agenda, guys? We spent, I think, 30 minutes of our time talking about these things. These are just tips and tricks on what to do when you are out there looking for jobs. Any question?
Yes, I have a question. How many should we be submitting on a, I guess, weekly basis? Let's put it like that. Resumes.
So, sure. So I usually suggest on Sundays, take like a couple hours and apply. But also if you have iPhone or whatever Android phone and you can log into Indeed, even if you're like watching TV, you can just click on that apply button, right? And you can keep going. So the idea is that you apply as many as you need to get at least one interview per week, right? So if you can apply, let's say 1,000 jobs, I can guarantee you at least 2 or 3 positions is going to call you for that week. But then that week is not going to be your interview. That week is still to talk about the position. They're just going to give you introductory calls. And then the following week, you're going to probably get the interview. So there are some people actually go so aggressive toward applying is that they end up getting a job in 2 to 3 weeks. All right. So it's really, really up to you, because the next thing is going to happen as soon as you hit the market and your resume is published, is going to be your responsibility, and it's going to be up to you how soon you're going to get the job. So if you bring the interviews 1 per week and you're not getting a job within the first month, then you can ask me like, okay, what's going on, right? Am I doing anything wrong? What it is something that we need to work on? And that is totally fine for me, for you to ask me. I will review the resume. I will update it if that is the case, right? But if you spend 3 months and you didn't bring any interview, and I'm not talking about talking to a recruiter. That is something that you can do easily with this guys and this guys through your script. But as soon as you get a real interview, let's say after 3 months you couldn't bring it, and you want to ask me a question, what happened? It's like, I'm going to ask you what happened to you, right? Because you are the one who has to bring that interview. So you do your 50% by setting up the interview, right? And my 50% is to make sure that I focus on making sure that you pass, right? That means getting on top of the game by, looking at the job description, making some assumption about the questions, sit down with you, ask you questions, doing mock interview, and then also try to help you with the interview as well, right? So whatever it takes, because one less student, we have more time for the others, right? So that's the way I see it. But your 50% is going to be setting up the interview. If you never set up the interview, trust me, we can't do our 50%. Your 50% comes first. And if you do the right thing, then setting up the interview will be relatively easy. That means you're applying as many as it takes to get one interview per week. Okay, so really the motivation has to come from you. Just understand one thing is that if there is no interview, there's nothing for us to work on, right? There's nothing for us to say, all right, we'll do this for you. You know what? We'll give you some additional training, or we'll sit down with you for 2 hours. We can't do none of these because we don't know what job description you're working on. And every time you set up an interview, you'll see the recruiters coming and reaching out to you and giving you materials to study. You can even ask them like, hey, is there anything that you have that I can prepare myself with? Now, if these guys, I'll tell you these guys will find the actual question from the interview and give it to you because they don't care. They just want you to pass, like it's just that simple because they get paid only if you get hired. So these guys, what they will do, they will ask the previous candidate, what was the question? They will note it and then they'll give it to you. That's how it is. But if you're the first person, they will even ask you, like after the interview, they'll call you and say, hey, how was the interview? And you're going to say it went well. What was the questions? And you're going to tell him and he'll note it and he'll tell it to the next person. That's the way these guys play because it doesn't matter if you get hired or the next person that he's providing, money is going to be just as good, right? It's just going to be whoever gets hired. It's really, really not that personal. He'll just get paid. These guys will be able to, direct recruiters, they will be able to give you materials to study. They will give you an idea like, okay, they usually ask this sort of questions, focus on this area, focus on that area. That's it. But they cannot provide you any of the details like these guys can, right? These guys are like more into like, okay, we want to make sure that at least one of my guys get hired and I get paid. That is their intention and goal. So again, interview set up as much as possible. Your 50% needs to be done first, and then we can do our 50%. And it's always like there is this one confusion, and some of you guys, after hitting the market, get disappointed because now you're not getting any interview. If you're not getting any interview, that means you're not applying enough because your resume has the things that they're looking for, right? So you have to, every Sunday, you have to go into these websites. You have to make sure that you focus on LinkedIn as well as Indeed as much as possible and apply as many jobs as you can for you to make it possible the first month. Now, I'll tell you like how many people are in here, right? So I'll tell you like, I think 5 of you guys that are here, which is going to be going to the market very soon, next week or so, right? Within at least the next couple of weeks. I can tell you this much, at least one of you guys will get the job on the first month. So February 31st, one of you guys will probably get an offer by that time, right? And it's just the luck, right? I can't tell you who it is. Sometimes the person who works really, really well and they do the homework and they understand everything, they end up getting the last. It's because they are probably selective about applying, but also the luck has to play, right? Sometimes you'll get the right person at the right time to talk to, and then they set up the interview and it just works out just fine, right? So that is the overall, again, like interview and the process of, job hunting is completely different than what you have been learning. What you have been learning is to just survive. As soon as you join the company, you're not going to be empty-handed. You're going to be better off with all the information that we gave you guys, because now at least you're not like totally blind in terms of your responsibilities. You know exactly what needs to be done. At least on the manual side, automation, you know how to get started. You can still crawl. I know you cannot run it just now, but you will be able to crawl. And the position that we will be targeting is going to be something they will allow you to crawl in the beginning. Okay. Any other questions before we go into Cucumber, guys? Everybody's super clear, because I know that some of you guys by Sunday that I spoke with you guys this morning, by Sunday you guys are gonna get some mock interview and we're gonna start placing. Just keep in mind, you will never ever feel like you're ready, and you will also not believe it until you get an offer, right? So the day you get an offer and things are moving forward, even then you're probably not gonna believe it until on your first paycheck or whatever is the case. You're probably gonna feel like you're working for free, because you will not feel like, oh wow, I'm getting a position as a senior QSO or whatever is the case. And once you get your first check, that's where the motivation will start, right? Because I remember when I saw my first paycheck, I was like, oh, I got to do a lot of work, right? So I started paying more attention and started doing more work. But trust me, that's the way it will be. But most importantly, this job will bring you a lot of peace, because you'll have a lot of time, and your life becomes a bit more controllable instead of spending 8 hours straight for a job, right? Any question before we jump into Cucumber, guys, for the day?
I have a question about LinkedIn. So I delete my LinkedIn old one because it has all the old information. So it says it will take couple weeks maybe to completely disappear. So is it going to be any issue if I go marketing?
No, it's not an issue. The thing is that you see what we're doing, even if you had a second LinkedIn somewhere visible,
Yeah.
the LinkedIn that you're creating new, you copy the link and you put it in your resume. So this gives the recruiter direct access to your LinkedIn, and so then they will not go and search for another Zinnia, right? And even if they find it, you'll just say that's my old account and I don't know what happened. It's just I just don't have access to it. Somebody's like playing around with it, or somebody hacked it, whatever is the case.
Oh.
But the thing is, they will probably not. It's not that pity, they're not gonna go that crazy. These guys, again, remember, these guys will even tell you like the answers of your questions, or questions that they need to that you'll be asked during the interview. It's because they don't care. These guys will not care. They just want you to get hired so they can get paid. So just keep that in mind.
Okay.
Yeah, so every recruiter is actually, so these guys get a commission. These guys get a commission, like if you hear how much they get paid, you'll be shocked, but I'm not, I guess. I'll tell you in a bit, but these guys also get a commission, right? They are like a recruiting partner for a direct client, and they do get commission, right? So agency wise, because we run an agency too. So think about this way. Recently, one of the company that hired few people through us says, oh, we really like them. We want to take them full time. We said, okay, give us the first year salary 20% and we'll just give it to you, right? That's a pretty good amount, right? So, and then they said, okay, we'll wait for some time, but we're still making money because they have to pay our fees and all of that stuff. So that's just us, and we're cheap. We're just a small group of people, right? Small company, small agency. We don't even exist in many people's eyes. But think about the big agencies where they have 200 and 300 employees that they manage, right? These guys will probably charge a lot more in terms of what they charge the client. So for example, TCS, you have Infosys, you have Cognizant. These are some of the companies will charge the client 120 and 30 per hour for your job, and then they will pay you 60. right? They'll pay you 60 an hour, and you'll say, wow, taking half of my paycheck. Yes, they're taking half of your paycheck. But remember, 60 is still a lot for you, right? And they have to do your payroll. They have to also make sure that they have a insurance under your name, which is like close to $1 million to $3 to $4 million insurance, right? That they have to pay, because in case you mess up something, somehow you click on the delete button and something happened and the company lost a lot of money, you don't have to pay out of pocket. You're off the hook. Whoever supplied you to that company is going to be the payer, the insurance company. So that's why many large companies like Chase, Bank of America, Wells Fargo, they prefer hiring through agency, because they know that at will they can get rid of people when they want to, and at will they can hire. But most importantly, if they mess up, it's immediate action, right? If they mess up, boom, you're fired, but then your company will pay the money, right? So it's very, very safe game for big clients, and that's why they are, able to pay that much, asked by these agencies. All right, so let's go into Cucumber and let's see if you guys have more question. So let's open up IntelliJ. How many people still remember Cucumber? You guys did the homework. I know most of you guys did the homework. But let's see who didn't do it. From the last class, actually, so from the last homework, only 4 of you guys did it. Zinnia, Sonia, Amit, and Arafat, right? So, that's just was like I would say, at least few of you guys, I was expecting for you to do the homework, but just look into it, because it is your last, this is where you're going to be selling, right? BDD is your main seller. You should be an expert on BDD by now, right? Because you're going to show that your current experience in BDD, Cucumber, and Java, and Selenium. And you will also tell them why there is a benefit of using BDD. So let's look how BDD looks like to begin with, and then give you guys a bit more exposure before we even start to write some test automation. So let me just go directly into Cucumber document. Right, so whenever you hear Cucumber and BDD, right? BDD goes very well with Agile, but BDD means behavior-driven development. And one of the reasons why we use it in companies is because the main primary reason was in the beginning to connect business side, people that are not technical. So business side people are not technical at all in a team. And BDD was there to write test automation using plain English, but also have the business guys write you the requirement, and you convert the requirement directly into test automation. And the business guys would write the test in which format? Who remembers? Anybody remember?
What was the question? I'm sorry.
So the requirement that you get it from business analyst or the product owner in BDD, what do we call them?
Specification documents.
So we call in BDD, because so if you say assume BDD with Agile, right? We call them user story, but then user story has acceptance criteria, right? So now acceptance criteria goes in a way is that we have a feature. We already know what feature means. Feature means like as a whole, like for example, login is a feature where people can log in, log out. They can, they can try different various numbers of emails or whatever is the case, and it will do the right thing. All right. If you don't have the right username and password, it will not log you in, right? So it will do the right thing as a function, as a feature. Okay. So that's as a whole, the login portion itself is a feature. Now sign up portion will be as a feature, but now sign up and login has integration between them. So that way, if you sign up, you can actually now log in after that. So a feature can have many scenarios. So imagine like a login feature, right? It's login, so customer login, for example, let's say. So that's your feature. This is just a description of the feature, right? Then within the feature, you have scenario. Scenario where you have multiple scenario for a feature. So first scenario could be, and you guys remember what scenario is? It's going to be very much like test scenario, right? So I'm going to write the description for the test scenario is verify user can, or customer, right? So whatever you want to address them with, customer can log in using valid user name and valid password, right? So that's one of your scenario, right? Okay, so now you'll be describing your scenario with the keyword given, when, and then, right? So if you do happen to have extra given, you can say and, right? If you do happen to have a extra when, then you can say and. If you do have an extra one, then you can say and, or you can simply say then. It just doesn't look good, but really these keywords has no effect on your code. This keyword doesn't really dictate how the code should work, right? So now given so given usually is the keyword that we use where we are in the application. So I can say I am on the home page and I navigate to login page, right? So once first I was in home page, then I went to login page. When I enter username, right, and password, right? So you might want to say valid because we'll try invalid as well shortly after, and valid password, and click. So notice like how I'm adding this and click enter, right? So I could have easily eliminated this and just put click enter right here. So then I wouldn't need that extra line, but you're just making it more and more readable. But just understand one thing, the whole purpose of BDD is that making your test as readable as possible. So it has to logically make sense because somebody's reading it and they have no idea because you just wrote a bunch of word and then you had your code. Maybe your code is doing the right thing, but then your words do not make any sense. So the acceptance criteria becomes really hard to understand. So to make sure, you want to write the acceptance criteria in this manner. The other thing that I want to tell you guys is that when you work in a team, most likely these acceptance criteria will be written ahead of time by your BA or the product owner. The only thing you'll have to do is verify to make sure you have all the scenarios, right, for this feature. So if they miss one or two scenario, you just add it to them. All right, you just add it and just let them know, hey, I added 2 extra scenarios. It looks like these 2 scenarios we need to include. Just review and let me know if it's all good, right? So you can add those scenarios like that. So once you click on enter, the expectation is that customer should be, and okay, I should be logged in, and I should see my home page right after login, right? So that's just makes sense. Once you log in, you're on the home page and see user icon, right? So normally, you know how we logged into Facebook, and then after that you can see like your icon, your actual profile right there. Or I can say I should see my profile link, right? For example, right, from that page. Now that is one scenario. Who can give me the next scenario for this feature, the login feature?
Verify customer can log in using invalid card with, valid username and invalid password, maybe.
Okay, so second scenario, you're saying
We
invalid.
can do a scenario outline with multiple password, multiple data.
Okay. How many people know scenario outline? What is scenario outline, guys? We talked about it. Who knows? Okay, who doesn't know? So at least we can go ahead and talk about those.
I
know
don't
Xenia
remember.
knows. Okay. So scenario outline is that if you really look at this test, what is different? The difference is that you have valid password and valid username, and the expectation is different, right? So what you can do, because you have multiple scenario, maybe you want to combine some scenarios into scenario outline. So that way you can pass on different data and run the test once for each of that data type, right? So that means you're parameterizing your tests. You're making sure that your script runs with multiple data set, right? In this case, what is the data set? So let me just go ahead and write a new one in this case. So scenario outline. So scenario outline has to be written just like this, okay? And then you have to give it a table, examples, right? Example is the table name. So in the interview, don't just say as an example, this no. The table name is example. So it has to be example as a name for the table, and nothing else, right? Otherwise, it's not gonna work. So as soon as you have the example table, you create pipes, right, for each data. So the first one, we know that we're talking about login, okay, valid username. So let's say username. The second one is password, and we're gonna probably open up our IntelliJ in a bit and then use these things to write, basically go ahead and automate. So pay attention right now, because when we're ready to automate, we're just gonna copy this and paste it and see how seamless that is, right? So just make sure you pay attention right now. Okay, so username, password, these are just the header, and outcome could be like logged in or something. So outcome success or not success, right? So basically, okay, so you can say outcome here, maybe it's better, outcome. So now for this test, I know valid or invalid, we don't care. So we'll go ahead and enter this. Username is gonna be this. So we're gonna say username is this. The username will be picked up from here. Password will be picked up from here. And then where I should be logged in. And so basically should see or should not see, right? It's really gonna be depending on the outcome. So outcome could be, let's see, I should be logged in, and then maybe like false, right? False or true, right? So I can say outcome, and then same thing. These profile you're gonna see or not, it could be another Boolean outcome, right? So let's talk about it. The first one is valid username. So let's say John12, and then password is password, and it's valid, right? Let's say, right? And the outcome is success. Success could be like, let's say, true. So for both is true, like logged in worked and profile link worked, right? So let me just fix this a little bit to make it look more readable, even to make it look. And when I put it in IntelliJ, you'll see the difference, right? So at least, okay. So now we have the second iteration where invalid password, username. So invalid one, let's say, I'm just gonna name it invalid so we can kind of remember. So invalid username, but then right password, and then and then if it's invalid password, then of course it's gonna be false, right? Because it shouldn't be logged in and it shouldn't be showing the profile. The next one is valid username, invalid password, right? Okay. By now it probably makes sense to you guys, right? Anybody that doesn't make sense? Here is empty, right? Empty, for example. So it could be like nothing, right? Empty. So I'm just gonna write empty. It's nothing. Then it should be false. Then we can say we want John12, but then let's say character limit is only, maybe username should be only 8-digit, but I want to enter more than 8-digit, right? So I will say long user name check 1, 2, 3, right? Whatever is the case, 1, 2, 3. So this username should not even work, right? And then I put a valid password from some other username, and then it should be false, right? Then I go into this, and now this time I use a username that has illegal characters, right? Something like this, right? user, right? Something like this, and it should not work, right? It should be false. Then I go into the next one and I maybe enter number only. Username cannot be number only, right? So I'm just entering 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 8, 9, 0, and then testing it out, right? And it should be false. You guys get the picture, right? By now. So I will do the same thing for the password. So now 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, whatever is the test scenario that we just wrote, it'll be doubled, right? So we'll do one more rounds of everything that we just did for password as well. So I'm not gonna go that far if you guys got the picture already. So what's gonna happen is with the scenario outline, the first time it'll run with this, only this, right? So imagine the first test is running. What's gonna happen, first thing is gonna go to home page, then he's gonna go to login page and he's gonna enter username, is going to enter password, and obviously username and password both valid. Therefore, we're expecting true for login. We're expecting the profile link to be true. Okay. So that's pass. Then what's going to happen is going to run the second iteration. So in the second iteration, we know already username is invalid, right? And then the valid password, and then it's going to be outcome false. Okay. False for the profile link as well, right? So that is the second one. So we know the second one, if it's false, then it will pass the test, right? It's not going to fail the test because our expectation is that if we do enter wrong username, whatever is the case, and we don't meet the criteria, it should not log us in. So because it's false, we know that this is something that we expected. Maybe like I would change that to expected result. It's much better to understand. Right, so I will copy that, paste it here. Okay, and similarly the other one. So in this case, somebody walk me through what's going to happen if you know, as soon as it reaches to this guy, right? So let's see, Sonia, walk me through what's going to happen if you when it comes to this specific line and it's running the test.
The outcome will be false.
Just navigate through the whole thing. So let's say you're gonna talk like this. I'm on the first is gonna go to the home page. It's gonna go to login. It
I'll
will
go
enter
to
this
the home
long.
page, then
Mhm.
I'll go to the login page, then I will
Mhm.
enter the username,
Mhm.
then I'll enter the password.
Okay.
Um,
And once you click enter, what's gonna happen?
mm,
Your
I'll,
assumption, because it's the long one, right? It's only accept 8 digit, for example. So it will complain and say, okay,
it
you're
will not
entering.
take the username because it's too long, maybe.
Okay, so therefore you're not logged in, and therefore you're not in the profile. You know, you're not in the profile link, right? You cannot see a profile link because you're not even logged in the first place.
Yes.
Okay, good. All right, so now who can tell me how many tests we have here? Like just from by looking at this highlighted portion, how many tests there is truly? How many test cases basically here?
7.
Okay,
7.
so let's count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, right? So we have 7 test cases. So it seems like everybody's getting it real fast because we went through this before. So now, obviously for the scenario outline, or at least for this specific login scenario, you guys already know how many test cases there will be. There will be a lot of test cases, right? And I'm gonna just bring it up real quick to give you guys an idea when it comes about critical thinking and understanding the product, and then come up with the test scenarios, right? That is gonna be the secret sauce of any QA. All right, what is a good QA look like? Not somebody who's gonna come in and right away try to finish the work. Is somebody who's going to take their time, is somebody who's going to try to understand the product, is somebody who's going to also, you know, understand the process, and then come up with all possible combination, try to break the system. Not somebody who's coming in and say, I already tested, everything's good. you know, that person is really, really not needed in a team, because developers do that all the time. What they do is that they develop the application and they quickly test, right? And then they will give it to you for your expertise, right? Otherwise, they could have done it themselves. Why would they need you? If you're going to be rushing with testing and not really going to use critical thinking, not going to take your time and come up with the way you can break the system, then it's really like you're not helping, because developers already did what you were trying to do. So that's why I'm saying a good tester is somebody who is going to really, really zone out, pay attention, and kind of come up with something that everybody else will not come up with, right? So that's where our secret sauce comes from. Now I can say test cases for login, right? And this is something that sometime I use during the interview. Some of you guys, you know, really, really miss, like, because they will come back and say, okay, give me test cases for login. And some of you guys, I see that struggling to come up with test cases for login. And then I'm like, oh my God, okay, just Google it. You know, it's right there. The idea is that login test case shouldn't even be something that you should be Googling. It should be like immediate, because I don't know how many times we covered it, but let's look at it again. Okay. So with the idea that you're going to be applying all this critical thinking, understanding the product, even without understanding the product for logging itself, you don't need to think too much. You already know what to check for, because logging is pretty standard for every single company that you'll be working with, right? So if you ever get to test login feature, you can probably use this material as well to say, okay, did I check this? This is almost like a checklist for you to be used in the future at some point if you do happen to get hired, right? Because login feature is very similar for everybody else, but you have to tweak it based on your product, right? Your product may have different, you know, error messages. They may accept special character. They may not accept special character. So it's really, really understanding from the recruiters what you know, what your requirement is. So you'll still have to look at the requirement, but again, you can get some idea from here to say, I will see if I need to check this or that. So initially, functional test. Functional test is basically just to make sure that it's anything that is interactable, anything that customer can click and, you know, make it do something is actually working. Whenever you come back, whenever we create test cases, or at least test scenario, these are test scenarios, by the way, and they're calling a test case because it has enough information to be able to execute, right? But if it's a one-liner, at least it's just think that is a test scenario. The difference between test scenario and test case is that test case has a lot more information, like pass or fail. This one doesn't have it. So just keep that in mind. This is a test scenario. Now, test scenario have negative as well as positive, right? So whenever you try with negative data to break the system is a negative test case. Whenever you do happy path, whenever you're testing to make sure your user will not suffer in that specific workflow, it is a positive test case. So for example, if you click on forget password functionality and it works, then it is a positive, right? Negative is going to be when you leave the field blank, because that is totally not expected. But that doesn't mean your system should give up. If somebody enter nothing and click enter, your computer should not crash, or their browser shouldn't crash, or whatever is the case, right? Your application should be able to handle it. So you're going to be checking with nothing on both field, click on submit to see whether the application handles it well. Maybe the application should come back and say, you know, you're not entering any data for me to log you in, or you're not entering username or password, right? So again, the application needs to have some sort of handling mechanism for anything that the user will throw into. And that is something that you'll be verifying by coming up with all this list of scenarios that you think that the customer will throw into the application. The whole idea is that you want to break it before the customer breaks it. Okay, so you want to break it now, so that way your team can fix it before the customer end up breaking the application later when the release takes place. Okay, just keep that in mind. So now that we have all the scenarios, let's look at it. How many scenarios? So you got 14 test scenarios just for functional, and this is only login. Then you have non-functional security test cases or test scenarios. We have 8 of them. So any login will have security related testing. So this will be going on your interview question. Have you ever done security testing? And you can say I did just enough because I was testing login feature and there are some security test cases that we wrote, but that's about it. You don't have to go in depth because security testing is way, way, way deeper. Now we're talking more into like, going on the server side. So you can say this is how far you went, right? That's totally, totally normal and fine. Now, security test case, you got 8 for just login, which a login feature only has a username and password and submit button. That's it, right? And we're coming up with so many test cases. Then you go into the next, and let's see what they have. So this is still security, I think, security test cases. Then you have test cases for sign up. This is for sign up. So now look at how many test cases, guys. If you think that you can come up with all of these logically, then you're in a very good place right now. You basically you can increase your confidence a little bit more because at the end of the day, it's not somebody who can code, or it's not somebody who can go in there and start to showcase their skill set, but it's also somebody who's going to come in and really, really be really critical to the application. Somebody who's going to take things very, very seriously and find issues in the application rather than saying, I can do Selenium and everything's working, everything is happy. Nobody wants to know from a QA, everything is happy. You should be the person who's going to come bring bad news at all times in your team. Guys, this is not working. Guys, that is not up to my expectation. You know what? I cannot pass this. I don't feel comfortable passing this feature. This has too many bugs. These are the news that you will be giving to your team until they improve. And you will be improving them and their behavior, because the moment you start accepting features that has minor issues, they will throw the similar things at you at all times. It's not up to you to pass it. You are there to just say, well, this meets the acceptance criteria, so it passed. It doesn't meet, then it fails, period. Now they can go and fight with whoever they want to fight. It doesn't really matter. Sometimes you will also feel the pressure where like even the managers come like, oh, this feature needs to go out. Can you finish? Can you finish? I'll say, okay, here's the deal. These are the few problems that I found. If you agree and you would like to sign off on this release with these issues, can you just go ahead and email it to me and we'll go for a release. That's it. Yeah, because you don't want to deal with it after the release. What's going to happen after the release is the manager is nowhere to be found. And he's just going to say, oh man, really? Why didn't you tell me? And you're like, I told you. And now in front of everybody, what are you going to say? Like, you're going to try to fight with this guy? You're not. And now you're going to have to write an essay to say lesson learned, right? You're going to be writing an essay and telling everybody, oh, it's my fault, and next time it's not going to happen. Rather than doing that, you will be as critical as possible. You're supposed to be critical. You are a QA expert, and that's why they hired you. They're not hiring you to make everybody happy. Okay, so just keep that in mind. Always is that bad news is good news for you when you bring that bad news. But also you want to make sure that you don't become so critical where they're saying, okay, can I fix it? You're like, no, I'm going to create a bug. No, you have to be flexible, right? If they said, okay, I'm going to take 2 minutes, I'm going to fix this. Just say, okay, fine, not a problem. Fix it and send it to me. It's okay. But if it takes longer, you'll tell him like, I'd rather create a bug because I will forget. But if it takes like, okay, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, whatever is the case, the developers like really like begging you, I'm going to fix it. Don't write up. So then don't write up. Let them fix it, give it to you, but then you can still use the information during your meeting and say, I found this many bugs. I didn't write this and this bug because, he fixed it really quickly. So that's it. That's totally fine if you still want to take credit. All right. So now that we talked about the test scenarios, and I just wanted you guys to understand the really what will make you a really great QA, and something that will make you passionate about this job is being critical and bringing bad news, right, to the team. And like I said, bad news doesn't mean bad news. It just means that you're finding a bug and improving them, improving the application, as well as improving the behavior of developers where they think they can just push anything. So now I'm gonna take this scenario, and the whole reason why I explained everything is just that, just know that this is not a complete, not all of the scenarios are here, right? For the login, there is a lot more that we have it here that we can actually include, and we can probably create more scenario outlines, okay, with different kind of data points. So just keep that in mind. So now that for learning purposes, we're going to take this and we're going to put it into our BDD framework. And we're going to convert that into automation tests. So all right, IntelliJ. Waiting for it to load. Any question in the meantime? All right, so I believe this was the one that we were last work with. So I'm going to open this. If that is not the one, then we'll see what it is. Which one is the working framework? I know that there are a few frameworks that initially we had a lot of trouble with. All right. Now, okay, so let's see. We got the driver. I think this is the one that we actually worked with and it was fine. So if that doesn't give us trouble, we will go ahead and change it up. So now in the test itself, I'm going to go ahead and write a new feature. I'm going to click on new. I'm going to create a feature just like this. So IntelliJ does have the plugin here for Cucumber. So it knows that I want to create a feature, or I will create it from scratch. If I want to create from scratch, I can say login.feature, right? As long as you are naming your feature with the dot right there at the end, .feature, then it will automatically pick that as a Cucumber file and it'll work. So I'm going to go ahead and paste that here, and notice automatically your IntelliJ recognizes that these are the tests. Now I'm going to make the test look more prettier by Command A. For Windows is Control A, and then Command Shift L for, okay, wait, is it Command? Okay, sorry. Option Command L for the Mac. Oh, wait a minute. Control Command L. Okay, let me see. What is the shortcut? I forgot. God damn it. Okay, there we go. It's Option Command L for the Mac users. Okay, and then let me just fix this keyword. Missing this, right? So I'm gonna have to add this right there. Okay, there we go. All right, so for those who's using Mac, is Option Command L shortcut to make your test look pretty. That's just gonna change the format and making it more look like a table. And then those who are using Windows is gonna be Control. No, it's gonna be your Windows button and the button right next to it on the right side, just right next to it, and L at the same time. So whenever you get a chance, try it. If not, then you can also find a shortcut into the help, right, for Windows. So any tools, if you go on the help, you'll find all the shortcuts that you need. Now that we have this test, the first thing is login, right? So if this login works, then we can make this one work as well, because it's going to be very similar, sharing the same exact steps. The first thing it says I'm on the home page. We don't know what homepage that is. So let's first find a website that has a login that we can test. So let's see. Something that we can log in without having to. Demo website for login, maybe. Demo T framework, okay, login. Okay, there we go, right here. So we're just gonna enter some information and log in. So that is one. So somebody made this website for demo for this specific technology. So we're just using for testing. So it's nothing wrong with that. I'm just gonna put that information right here. This is the website that we are using for now. And in the feature level, whatever you write up until down here, it's just comment. It's just text, and it has nothing to do with code. Just keep in mind. So you can actually write whatever you want. In here, you should be writing objectives. You should be writing what is the whole feature is all about, why there is a need for this feature, why a customer will use this feature, right? So something like this, I would write, right, as a So as a customer of this website, so you want to say whatever company, right? Let's say of Chase Bank, for example, Chase Bank. I would like to log into my portal in order to do some business, or let's say maybe like some transactions, such as like maybe like transfer, deposit check, and whatever, right? Whatever you can do in the Chase Bank website, right? Or pay, mortgage, pay like bills or something, right? So this is just the objective, like why the whole reason this feature is being developed, right? The customer should be able to log in order for them to do their business, which is pay mortgage, and go ahead and transfer money, whatever is the case that they want to do. I just put this link right here for you guys to see, and this has nothing to do with the description that you're creating for the feature. Okay, so this is as realistic as I can create for you guys to see. Now, whenever you see that you like basically on the feature file, whenever you want to comment things out, you're going to use, you're going to use the hashtag, and that means is that Cucumber will not execute this, right? If you leave it as is, then it's going to execute, right? It's going to think that it has code or something behind it. All right. Next, we are going to scenario. On the scenario itself, you see that it has a description. So this has nothing to do with code either. This is like same as this. This is just the objective of the scenario itself. Because the feature has multiple scenario, you want to provide what this scenario is doing. So in this case, we wrote verify customer can log in using valid user and valid password, right? So that is the objective of this scenario. So now in order to fulfill this objective, we have various steps, all right? These are the step definition. So various steps are basically this. You first go into the homepage, second navigate to login, third, enter valid username and password, and then click. And after that, the goal that you wrote earlier is accomplished, right? So now we're going to do that. So that's how we write our tests in Gherkin. So the first thing first, when you see that this is highlighted, that means it doesn't have any step definition, right? So if you want to create the step definition, all you have to do is click on that. From your IntelliJ, obviously Eclipse will not do it. You'll have to do everything from scratch. So Eclipse is never going to be helpful when you do BDD and Cucumber implementation for automation. So just keep that in mind. You're going to click on this. You're going to create a step definition. Okay, create. And now I know that we already have a folder for my step dev. So I'll just go ahead and click on that, and it will just create it underneath. Notice it created a template for me and where to write my code. So this is where I'm going to be writing the code to make it work. So it says I'm on the home page, so I have to fulfill whatever in plain English. The reason why this is encased with string, which is double quote, is just saying that whenever somebody from the feature file calls this plain English, execute this method. Now this method will have code that we're going to write just now, and that's what it'll be executing. Notice that we also have a page where we write all of our methods, right? So we're going to be following page object. I think last time we did the page object itself. So we're going to do page object right after we write our code here in the beginning, so that way we can go ahead and do this, right? So now page is equal to, let's see, what's the deal here? Okay, so everything that we do here has to be addressed by page, because the driver is not accessible by this specific class, right? There is no driver. The driver is accessible by the page. So therefore, whenever you say page, that means that is it, right? That is going to call the driver instance. Okay, so I'm going to say page dot. You see, like, notice like how all this method is available. So this page, I'm going to go ahead and find it, which is in our action right there. You see, So now in order for me to go into, so I'm gonna say go to something, right? So go to URL. You see page already have a method that is go to that we created with our last test. So if I go in there, you see that we created go to home page right there. We have a method for, but then we can also say go to, basically we can also make this as a parameter, right? We can say this should take a string, right? A string, and it should take an URL, right? So we can actually use go to home page from this one. So one related problem, we're gonna have to go and fix that. So we're gonna take this, right? I'm gonna copy that and we're gonna say this is gonna go to URL that is, so we're making it reusable at this point, right? Method. So now I'm gonna go into the related problem. You see go to, and this is where it should be taking the, so that way it's not breaking the existing test. So the other test will not be broken, but at the same time, we can now use this guy to here. Now here I can just change the URL and it will work for me. Any confusion, question, or anything? So now I'm gonna go back to this, not this one, sorry, step definition, and then I'm gonna go ahead and get the URL. So notice it is taking URL as a parameter, right? In addition to that, I can actually pass the parameter to directly to the step itself if I want to. So I'm on homepage doesn't mean anything to me because I'm on homepage doesn't say that I'm on this specific website, right? So now I can say, it will say, it will take the URL. So I can say string URL, right? And I can actually go ahead and say like this, I'm on the, so now I don't even have to say this, right? I can actually say something like this. I can say string. Okay, so now it is taking this and I can now remove that from here. Again, guys, if you get confused, just make sure you let me know. So let's just see if it's good. Okay, string zip. So now this URL is replaced by this URL. So now if I go back and I'm on the page, right? So I can actually reuse this and I can say I am. So I am, so you see the string, this is where now I can put my URL and this will still work. Okay. Oh, I gotta put it into a string. Boom. So now this line will now work. Anybody have any question before I go into the next line? There's a lot of things that was done. Every step of the way we made modifications. So everybody understood and no explanation needed before we go on to the next one, correct?
Yeah.
So, I don't know, Arafat, if you ask a question or you want me to explain.
No, I said yeah, it's clear.
It's clear? Okay, good. Okay, just for the sanity, some of you guys still probably confused. Now, this step definition is reusable is because you can really pass anything, any URL here and it'll work is because when you go into the step definition, your step itself right here says, instead of telling you exactly where I'm going, it'll be a string that I want to go with. That is string being passed on to the method. That method also, if we go inside of that method, you can see this method is also not explicitly saying what URL that is. Everything is done through a variable. Okay, so then when you apply that string at the end, it kind of replaces all of the variable, and now it knows to go to this one, right? So now that it went to this, right, it's not in the login. So I'm going to remove that from here and I'm going to use this guy to go to the login page, right? So let's see, actually, let me just visit this URL and see how it looks like first. Okay, so now if I go into, let's say, without the login page, page 2, oh, page 2 doesn't work, okay. All right, well, you know, it is what it is, the guy worked with. But now that we are already going to the login page using this URL, we don't really need this, right? We probably need something else. We're just gonna say, and I'm on the login page, right? I am on the login page, right? So this is basically you're validating that you are actually on login page, right? So right after visiting, you are making sure that you actually went to the login page. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and create a step into the same exact class, right? So notice like this was the last one, is how clean this is, right? It's very clean. So now what I will probably do, and I will make sure that I validate something, right? So if you are in login page and you see, let's say username, right? That means it's pretty clear that it is logged in, like at least it's on the login page. So you can say something like, so let me just create a method. I'm gonna go into the same exact action class and I'm gonna put the method right here, right? So notice like, again, you have to, again, the locators are different, right? So you have to pass on the locators, right? So locator.goto. So let's see what the locator is all about. So let's create a new one here, okay. Again, the name here, I think we collectively decided a locator, but the name is not appropriate. You can probably name something else, something better to understand. But anyway, so now every class have a different access level in here, right? Where in this specific class, you cannot use anything else but locator. There is no driver access. And then if you go inside of the locator, right, then you will see the driver access is there. So every step of the way, they have different level of access, and you just have to put the right thing at the right place, enforced by this framework, designed by this framework, basically. So you'll find yourself when you join a new company or whatever company, and you're writing automated tests, you cannot just write find element anywhere. It has to be very, very specific location. And it's because the enforcement is there. So in this case, as you can see, enforcement is here because we can only extend one specific class, and we're not extending other classes in the same, in the parent class. And therefore, we just have to go with the hierarchy. You write, first you write it on the locator, and then once you're good, then you write it on the action class. And then once you write it on the action class, then you move into login step, which is my definition. But again, the naming of this class file will be different for a company. So just keep that in mind, and just open mind about the naming. So now I'm going to be here writing, okay, public. I'm going to say web element. So we need to find that web element, right? So I'm going to just say login input box, right? So login input box has two that we want to make sure that it's there, right? So I can just say something like, okay, so user input box, maybe something, right? User input box, right? So this should be returning. So I'm just going to copy this real quick and then paste it here. And the next thing is that you see that the locator is going to be changed. So I'm going to go and find the locator for this guy. Okay, so inspect. And let's see what is the locator, because I don't know yet, right? So click on it, and user has a name, user ID, and ID has a name as well. So I'm just going to use the ID, which is much better. Okay, so that is your username. Okay. So now I can say I want to call the user input, right? I want to say that I will go back to the action, and this is where I can create a new public void, verify user name field, right? So in this case, I can now say that locator, because that's where the locator class has your stuff, right? So this is where you're going to say user input fields. So user input box, this is your locator, and you're going to say dot maybe is displayed, right? Now is displayed is actually returns a Boolean. So I'm going to actually create a variable in Boolean, and I'm going to say user name field displayed, right? So if it's not displayed, what's going to happen? It's going to say false, right? And if it displays, it's going to say true. So in this case, I'm just going to create an assertion. I'm going to just say assert. Okay, so notice like assert giving me options right here. I think like large assert. So assert from JUnit or assert from TestNG. I don't know which one we were using last time, but I'll go ahead and take it from JUnit, and then I'm gonna say dot assert true because that's what it is that we want to validate. And we just want to make sure this thing is true. That's it. Now that we have our method that actually validates, validates that username box is displayed, we can now go back to step definition that we tried to create, right? So you see, I'm on login page. If I can see this guy, right? If I can go ahead and see, if this step passes, that means I'm already, right? I'm on the login page. That's it. It's basically looking for that specific thing, username field. Okay, so I'm on login page. So now if I go back in here, we have 2 steps that is right now in working order. So now let's say we want to run at least this test for now. I'm going to go ahead and comment this out, and you guys know shortcut for commenting on multiple steps. It's basically command / for Mac, and then for Windows is going to be your Windows button and then / together. Now if I run this, it will most likely pass. So let's go ahead and run it real quick and then see what's the deal with this framework. Okay, and then it just went there, and that's it. And it's not going to do anything because I didn't ask for the browser to be closed, and it's still there. So let's see what happened right away. It just says that write code. Okay, so I'm on the home page, says write a code, blah 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 blah, right? So it somehow it doesn't know that the step is there. So now I think what happened is these steps got executed as well, right? So I'm gonna go ahead and go ahead and comment this out until I'm ready to implement those. So I'm gonna run it again to make sure it's not really erroring out onto something that I not intended to run. Okay. All right, and then let's see. Okay, so it says Selenium, no such element or unable to locate element username, right? So this username is nowhere to be found. Okay. So what's happening is that these step failed. Okay, these step actually fell. So now the next thing is, the easy thing you can do is that, oh, you know what? I'm just gonna wait for it, right? I'm just gonna simply say thread.sleep, right? And it'll wait. Or I can say I want to apply explicit wait, meaning now we're going to learn something different, right? There is, in Selenium, there is 2 kind of waits, right? Waits in Selenium, and this is the interview question, almost guaranteed all the time. You have actually 3 type of waits. You have implicit, explicit, and fluent wait. So in our case, what do we need in this case, right? We need explicit wait because we want to wait for this guy before even checking on this guy. Okay, because if we are verifying if username is there and we just go ahead and just simply check on this guy and the browser is taking longer to load, then it will really not work, right? So in this case, we can just check on this guy first. So let's see how explicit wait works, right? So implicit wait is on the driver side, right? So maybe we should apply implicit wait on the driver side first, actually, because that's why maybe our test also is. So I can actually add the implicit wait here. And I can just go ahead and paste it here, and I can say driver do this for me, right? I can also put the implicit wait in the very beginning, within these steps, if I want to. So let's see the explicit. This is the, okay. This is your explicit wait, right? So in your explicit wait, you're telling WebDriver to wait for something, okay? And you're saying that, hey, wait for this thing to be present, but wait 30 seconds. If it's not there, then come back to me, right? That's exactly what you're saying. The implementation, the way the implementation works is this. Let's see, where did they write? Okay, this is this. Okay, so right here, WebDriver wait, new WebDriver wait. So this is like where you're calling the instance and you're saying that you want to wait until 20, 20 seconds up to 20 seconds, right? And then you're going to be using wait at the locator level, right? So this is your title, this is your string, and then you're saying, okay, let's see, where is it? Maximize it there, driver.get home. Okay, that's fine. All right, it's not very clear, but let's see. Do they have any other explanation? Return. Okay, so this is not very clear. Let me go into another touch point. Okay, maybe that's explicit. So if I just write Selenium explicit wait, and then go in there, Stack Overflow is probably one of the fastest way to get your information. Oh, what just happened? Oh. Okay, so even if I go to browser stack and let's find the explicit wait that they gave us as a initialize. So the first thing is they are asking us to initialize, right? This is like 30 seconds, up to 30 seconds. Once you do the initialization, remember the driver has to be called, right? The driver instance. So where we can call this actually matters based on where the driver is, right? Where actually the driver is. So driver is not here. If you go into the locator level, this is where the driver is. And we gave the driver a name called, basically browser. So this is where we have to initialize our driver. So in our case, driver is basically just browser, right? Because it's the name, right? So WebDriver reference is this, is the browser, and then we have to import, okay? And the timeout is like 30 seconds, for example, right? Timeout in seconds is already telling you. So now that we have this, the next line is the line, right? The next line is basically, you have to apply at the, okay, implicit wait, explicit, where is it? 1 second. This is where the driver is, and then there you go, wait until this specific. So now you have to use wait until, and you have to provide the locator as well. So I'm going to copy this line, and then let's go ahead and paste it here. So wait until exception condition, you need to import it, right? Visible. And then this is where you provide the locator. So in our case, username is the locator. I will just copy this and replace it, right? So by CSS selector, oh my God, okay. The reason why the test failed and we're doing all this work is because this should be an ID. Nobody catched me, okay. So now it's good that we're learning the explicit wait because you're gonna need it at some point, right? So what I just did, I said, okay, I want to wait up to 30 seconds if he's not there, and then I want to check this guy. Okay, that's exactly what I said. If for any reason 30 seconds later, if it doesn't show up, then it's gonna fail. But if it's finishes before 30 seconds, it will basically at that time it will return it right away. So now if I run it, I can assure you it will pass at this point. Now, again, the whole root cause of failure to this step was because I was using ID, and then I was saying, wait for CSS selector, and that's where the problem was. But in the process of fixing it, thinking that it was a timing issue, we learned how to deal with, let's see, how to deal with explicit wait. Now, again, any question about explicit wait, because we're gonna go to implicit the next one. This is an interview question, guys. It's a must interview question. Explicit is all you're doing is saying, I want to wait for this element before I even look for it, before I return it. Imagine like you're trying to return this web element, but that web element is still loading or doesn't have the load state, or it's somehow the page hasn't loaded yet and this element wasn't even there, right? How is it going to return? So that's why you're saying wait up to 30 seconds before even tell me if it's not there. right? So your test becomes more, solid, right? Where it's not gonna just get upset because of 1 second. You have up to 30 seconds to still deliver this web element, right? That's what you were saying. So the difference between implicit and explicit is that explicit wait, you wait for one web element, right? And make sure it's there before you move on. And implicit wait is on the driver level, where you're saying, if I'm navigating through the application and at any given time I don't find something that I'm supposed to find, then wait until like 10 seconds or something, right before you complain. So what you were telling WebDriver is that don't complain right away. Just at least try a few more times, or at least try to find that web element. Give it yourself a little bit of time. Keep trying until you find it. But I want you to try 10 seconds, 20 seconds, whatever you wanna tell the WebDriver. So that is your implicit wait, right? It's on the driver side. And then you have your explicit where you're saying, I want to wait for that specific web element before I move on. Specific web element, again, being used to make your test more and more solid, where it doesn't really fail because your browser was slow for a few seconds. Okay, so that is your explicit and implicit wait. This is the only question they ask. Fluent, we don't really use Fluent as much as the explicit and implicit. Any question, guys? Okay, no question. That's good. So we got the step 2, step 1. Let's go to the step 3. Okay, on the step 3, it says I enter valid username and valid password. So in my case, remember, we want to make this as reusable as possible. Notice that we took a parameter. So why not take a parameter here also, so we can reuse it here when we reach to the scenario outline. So I'm going to say, instead of valid username, I'm just going to go ahead and put a quotation, and instead of valid password, I'm going to put a quotation, right? So what's going to happen is valid or invalid username or password, both is going to be up to us when we use this step. This step is just simply there to enter username and password. So the next thing what I will do is create a step definition, put it into the same exact location if I want to. I can even put it into whatever location I want. So user name, and then you have password. I'm just naming them right now. So I'm just giving it a nice name instead of like arguments, right? So now that we have this step, if I go back right here and I can see the username and password takes input. Now the step is not done. I have to start writing my steps. Before I even write my steps, I have to write a method, so that way I can go ahead and call that here. So I'm going to go ahead and put it in action. So notice in action, we still have to write we still have to write the web element, right? So we have web element for for your input box already. Okay, username box already is there. So I need to only create one for the password box. So see the reusability already, like we already can actually reuse this if we want to. But instead, we're gonna also go ahead and create one for the password. So if I go back to the locator class, and again, the name is not really very descriptive, but let's go ahead and all I have to do is I'm just gonna say password, and the next thing is password input box, right? And I'm gonna wait for the password, whatever is the case. I just need the password locator, right? So the locator password is actually ID is locator. So I'm just gonna go ahead and replace. So it's gonna wait for the locator, and it's actually returning the password field to me. So the next thing what I will do is go back to my action class, and I want to now create a method, right? So I'll create a method. I'm going to say public void, and I'm just going to say fill out username and password. So it's just descriptive. The first option is string username, right? The second option is string password, right? That's what I'm doing. The next thing is, I know that, oh, look at the spelling, okay. It doesn't really matter, this is just a variable, so I can actually make spelling mistakes and I'll still be fine. but it doesn't look good for my eyes. Okay, so now that I know that I have username and I have actually access to username, what I will do, I will just go ahead and say username dot send keys, and I will enter username there. Okay, notice is how clean this is. So the next one is locator dot password input box, and then I'm gonna say dot send keys, which is gonna be my password, right? So password is right there. This is the option. So now I enter username and password both here. And you may think, oh, wait a minute, you're just dealing with the field. But notice one thing is that each individual field also not only check that it's there, but before returning, it also makes sure it waits 30 seconds, before even complaining. So I know for a fact my, if this field, if this page takes longer, if this page is loading and it takes whatever amount of time, as long as it loads within 30 seconds, my test is not gonna fail, right? So notice how long it takes. It's like less than 30 seconds for sure, but just to be safe, you're putting 30 seconds as an extended timeout for your specific locator. And this is how we did explicit wait. Well, you can also say, no, I want to wait 60 seconds. Now, the question is, if I put 60 seconds, do you think it's going to wait 60 seconds if it found in 10 seconds? If it found that a specific web element in 10 seconds, Evelina, do you think it's going to wait 60 seconds?
I'm not sure. I'm sorry. No,
Yeah.
probably.
Yeah, so it's not going to wait. Explicit wait is because it's just gonna, you're putting timeout. Anytime somebody gives you a timeout or any sort of timeout in your program, it just means is that what is the maximum amount of time do you want me to wait? But in between, if I find it, I'll still continue with your code, and it's gonna move on to the next step. So in this case, it's gonna wait up to 60 seconds if the element is not found, and before it come back and complain to you as the engineer, right? So we can fix it. So now that we are here, and we already wrote, let's see the action. We already wrote the method in action. So I'll go back to my step definition. Okay, and then I'll say now page again, name of the class, and I'll go ahead and enter the method. In this method, I just need the username, obviously, and the password. And you can see that both will fall right into places. Now that I have it, I know that this will be working at this point. So now I can enter, I'm gonna enter initially invalid stuff, right? I'm gonna just enter anything. I'm just gonna say johndoe@gmail.com, and then password could be like password 123, right? 4. And let's just see if it enters it, right? And then we will enter the right password and right email, because this test case is for valid username and password, right? I just want to see if it works. At least inputs it there. And then we go from there. So notice it worked, right? And it's like so many things we went through. We went through 3 different classes just to make sure this step worked. But then what is in it for you if you have to go through 3 different classes, guys? What is in it for you as an engineer and your team as well? Is that there is a reusability there, right? Notice if you go back in here, not only that you can reuse this step separately for other username and password, but then notice you can reuse this specific method somewhere else in your code if you need to. But then if you go inside of it, you will see the reusability where you use user input box already here, but then you are using it here as well. So the reusability is in every possible angle that you can find. It is at the action level, it is at the locator level, it is at the step definition level. And then top of that, you have Cucumber giving you reusability directly on their feature levels. And so why reusability is such an important topic, right? Anytime I talk with big sharks in a company, and the only thing I stress, or I explain to them is reusability, and they love it. And it's because if you write test automation and you continue to write test automation, at some point you wrote so much automation tests that you need a team to come and maintain your test automation, right? You need a huge group of people because now your test needs maintenance whenever application changes. But if you have reusable code, it just reduces the need for you to do all the maintenance. So notice these 3 steps that we created, it can be used anywhere else in the application, and we don't have to rewrite them. So you're encouraged to reuse this step. And what you are doing is that at the end of the day, the code behind it is just here, right? Is in single place. So if I update the code here and here, it will automatically make it work everywhere else because I just went to the exact location for this code and it's in a single location and I updated and it'll work for everything that I'm using this step for. Just think about it, right? You don't want to reinvent new wheels at work. All right, so now that we entered information, obviously username, password, you have to click on login and let's
I'm so
see.
sorry. So is this like automation framework that you're setting up right now? Is that kind of what it's called?
This is the framework we set up the last class. I don't know if you were here. We did BDD and we actually, nothing that you see here that we didn't do together. Everything was done together for, I believe the last several class, maybe 2 or 3 class on Cucumber. We went on the advanced side after doing a very basic BDD. And then the advanced was basically going into and moving your stuff into different appropriate files to make it more organized and therefore making it more reusable and calling it from a specific class. And this is where this is basically as close as possible to the real thing, right? This is as if you find something like this in real work environment, then you'll be lucky. Like, oh wow, this is great. But it gets a little bit more messy. People don't follow everything the best possible way. And you'll see that they're writing code here and there and where they're not supposed to. Again, everything needs to be separated out so it's easier to maintain and reuse.
Got it. Thank you. I'll review.
No problem. Yeah, you can review that. But also there is a course that we recommended in Udemy for this that you can also probably look into. Now, for anybody here, does it look foreign? Because I have to go back. If it seems like, if you guys understand, then obviously we're going to continue. Otherwise, I'm going to go back to 0 for BDD and start from scratch because it's been a while. But most importantly, BDD is something that you should be knowing more than any other framework. How many people remember BDD?
So, Joel Bhai, I think last class you created another project. It's not the same project because last class you just created the feature and the step definition. So I think that's from the last batch.
Either way, it's the same thing, right? I mean, if I open the other one, let's see, recently. So these are all the projects that I have for BDD. So I believe initially we converted our TestNG into BDD just to show you guys that yes, this framework, all you have to do is add your Cucumber dependency to your pom.xml and it'll work. But this one is full-fledged BDD framework, meaning like this was actually this has everything that you need to do BDD development, and it doesn't have TestNG, which is fine. The idea is that even though TestNG and BDD can be used at the same time, you don't need to, because what TestNG offers, BDD offers better, right? So if you use both of them, it's just like you're putting, sugar on top of the, ice cream at this point. But I know that, for example, we created BDD framework from TestNG framework itself. And we've been doing that, right? Remember the first framework, what we did, right? Just recapping. We did plain Java and Selenium. That's it, right? That's the first ever framework. You guys learned to record a script from IDE, and then you guys use that script into Selenium, right? Once that was done, this is something for you to survive at work. So you're the only QA, nobody gives, nobody cares. They just want automation. Then you can survive that way until you are able to write better automated tests, right? So that's one. But most importantly, that was where the history comes from, how the Selenium IDE came to play. So that's one of the reasons why we showed you. Then we went to the next framework, which is Selenium, test, JUnit, and Java, right? So that is the very basic framework because it only has 3 dependencies, actually 4 dependencies. And the other one is the WebDriver Manager to make sure that we're not dependent on downloading the driver ourselves, but it does it automatically. So now we have this specific framework and we wrote our test in a very, minimum way, wrote everything in the same page for our understanding. Then we went into the next framework, which is TestNG, right? We did Selenium, Java, and TestNG, right? In TestNG, we showed you guys how to create a report, how to view a report, and then how to set up TestNG in general into your IntelliJ. We wrote the test, we ran the test, and that was it, right? And in TestNG, we did a little bit more advanced, right? We learned how to deal with multiple links. We learned the difference between web element and web elements. And finally, we went to Cucumber. And Cucumber is where I gave you guys several warning, like, hey, this is it. This is what we want to make sure that we want to grasp, because ultimately you want to preach for Cucumber. Ultimately, you want to support Cucumber. If you are in the interview, you want to say you really, really like it. You want to say that this is something that you enjoy working with, whatever is the case. The idea is that Cucumber is a popular test automation framework, at least as of right now. And when you say things like, oh, I really like working with Cucumber, the odds is going to be on your favor. But most importantly, Cucumber helps you to write automation without having to write a lot of code, because in your workplace, you'll see these steps already created for you, and you'll be able to just reuse them as much as possible. So initially, you'll be able to write a lot of test cases without having to write any code initially. But then over time, you have to get to understand the whole framework. And that's why I'm going over this framework. Now, if I open the other one, let's just see the difference, right? It shouldn't be a big difference. I believe this is the one, or maybe this is first day at Java. Okay. Which one it could be? Do you remember the name?
I think it could be the test automation or
This one? Okay. So let me open that real quick, and then you just have to open every single one of them. Okay. This might be one, right? This might be the one. I think it's pretty much clean,
yes,
cleaner
this is
looks.
the one, as
Okay.
I also practice this, so I can.
Yeah. Okay, that's fine. So this is the one. The only thing is missing. I don't think we advance into writing the way that we started writing here. Like, for example, we have action. We have locators where we're relocating elements in different locations. I think, let's see if I look into a specific, right? So everything is written directly, right? Into the step definition. And this is something that we covered prior, or this is like not covered at all in your class. Just remind me before I go into. You guys recalling creating action? Because I can recall. I think definitely we did this. It's just that it was right before you guys went out to the vacation, like the long week. All right. Let's see if I look into the first test. David Murray, we did the insurance application. Yeah, this is this is something that we did actually, right here. Okay, so now if you guys ask me that, hey, look, I don't understand the whole process of creating, like relocating this stuff, like you got the locator, you got the action, you're inheriting, then I can show you guys in here and start to relocate this into the appropriate places. But even if you were to create a test case and you're able to just at least understand these 2 layers. So this one has 2 layers, this one has 4 layers, right? So in these 2 layers is that you have your step that you wrote, and then underneath you have step definition, which is in this folder somewhere in this folder. So now you go into the step definition folder and you see that, so it's right here, sorry. And you see that each one of those step has code, right? So now the difference between this framework and this framework is that, yes, this one's 2 and that's it, right? This is where you can see the code. Here, as soon as you go into a step, let's go into it, you see a method. The method is coming from the action class, and action class has other methods that was written for you, and you're calling the instance of the action class and say, I want to call all of the method, or whatever method is created into action class to basically use them here, right? By inheriting, that's what you did, right? So now if we go inside of the action class, you can see that the code that you wrote, but still you don't see the driver side yet. Driver is in another class called locator. So if you go into the locator class, you can see now finally WebDriver and driver is here. And finally, you're able to use the driver here. So notice the driver name, we specifically named it browser for some reason. And now we can call the browser and use it. Okay. Any okay, any question? All right, so now the next thing that I want to do is I want to click on enter, right? What time is it? 10:15. Okay, that's good. So at least I can finish this test for you guys, right? So if I want to click on enter, I will create a step definition. Again, this is just a template. I can write it myself by looking into these steps. The difference between this and this is that just the text here and the method name. That's the only thing is the different. So let me see. Okay, so far you guys understand at least this much, right? Up until this much.
Yes.
Okay, so now that I'm here, I know in order for me to click here, I cannot simply just say driver.find element, right? Or browser.find element. Let's see if I can. So you can do say browser and something, right? You can't really say it here because you don't have any access to this specific class for browser, right? Your driver that you created. So now immediately you realize you do have access to the action. So you go inside of action, and then you realize you have the action class have locator, and the locator has the access, right? So still you don't have driver surfacing here, right? So you go inside of the locator and you realize, ooh, okay, I found the driver. So in this case, I will now create here so that way I can create my element, right? So web element, and I'm going to say enter button. And then I will just go ahead and say browser.this or whatever is the case, browser.find element. What should I use, element or elements, guys? Who can tell me this? Maybe ID, or let's see. So nobody can tell me I should use web element or web elements.
Element.
Element, right? Because element is for a single element, and then elements is for list of elements. So just keep that in mind. So in this case, I use type submit, and I just need to create this as a CSS selector, right? And then this should be CSS selector. So now I don't know if this locator is going to work for sure. So I'm going to go ahead and test it out, right? So right here, if I do Command F or Control F from the Windows, I can do square brackets, and inside of that, I will go ahead and write type submit. Okay. So notice if I do type submit, there is two. Okay, there is two. One is for login, and the other one is also for login. And now you can say, oh, wait a minute. Wait a minute, that I don't know where the other login is, right? And that's where the, that's where the problem, right? So now can you use this at this point? I'll give you guys 30 seconds to think. Well, I gotta text somebody back.
No,
Why not?
you have to specify, like specifically which one you are using. Then you won't find the which one you're clicking on.
Yeah, so Selenium is gonna say, oh, so it's like you, let's say you are a very solid person, you do exactly what you're told. And I said, go and, open the car, and there is 3 cars waiting outside. Are you gonna just go ahead and open the first car you find? It might be somebody like really like getting to fight with you, right? If it's their car.
Yeah.
So same thing, same idea, right? You just don't know. You're gonna be confused. Like, okay, which car you're asking me? Like, that's the first thing you're gonna say. Selenium is gonna come back and say, we found 2 elements with the same exact name or the locator, and which one do you want me to? And there are some cases where I guess, again, I'm telling you guys from experience, where Selenium will go ahead and click on the first one because the second one is taking a few seconds to load, so it's not technically there. So so sometimes you'll see like, oh, wait a minute, it's working for me, and it's because the second element is still taking a few seconds and the first element was already found. So that in that case it works, but in a real world, if both element loads at the same time, then we have a problem. But you don't want to have a issue like where maybe the second element loads first sometime and then first element loads first sometimes, right? Where now your test is really have an uncertainty in your test result because you don't know exactly which one is clicking on. So then if that is the case, what else can I use in this case, right? So I'm gonna give you guys an easy giveaway. So if I want this one to click, so right now I can see I have a submit button. I try to use it and it's not good, right? So I'm gonna go ahead and so if this is a button, I'm gonna go ahead and type button in the front, and let's see, boom. So notice that the login submit is actually more than once, but then button is 1 only. Okay, so now I can see that 1 of 1, and then it's highlighting the right one and it's working. So now I can actually take this and I can go ahead and put it into my test. So you can actually go as high as possible in terms of hierarchy of the of your element right here based on the HTML until it becomes unique. So the lower you go, the less unique it becomes, because now you may have a possibility of getting the same exact name, which has another element has a similar name. So you can go as higher as possible. So over time you'll learn it. But now let's say you're somebody who don't know how to get this locator, you can right click and you can copy the locator, and then you can paste it here. It's still 1 of 1, it'll work. And you can actually shorten it up, right? You can always shorten before the child thing, right? So I can just get rid of everything else before the child, and you see it still work. The first word child that you'll see, you will have to keep that, and everything else can be removed and it will still work. You see, notice like you got a small locator now. So just keep in mind, this is another way of, it's my way of giving you guys a trick on creating a smaller and shorter version of CSS locator. Now that we have this, let's go ahead and, okay, I just see a problem here. Add a return. So we just have to add a return because this is a, return of this element. So now that we add a return, this will be returned. I will go ahead and, so it's copy this thing right here. I'm gonna go to the action. I'm gonna create another method, now public void. Now that I have my locator all good, I'm gonna say click on submit. Okay, now that I'm clicking on submit, I can say locator dot find this guy, right? Enter button, and then I'm gonna say dot click. That's all I have to do. Very simple. So now that this method is there to click, I will go back to my step definition, and all I have to do is just say page dot click submit, and that's it. Okay, so this method is all complete. If I go back to this, and it's done, right? And I'm gonna run it real quick and just see if it works. If it clicks on the enter, it'll probably show error message because obviously like the username and password doesn't exist. So we're gonna have to create one. Click login, boom, username and password do not match, right? So maybe just for the sake of saving time, I'll just verify if this message is there. So let's say, suppose we're changing to invalid username, whatever, invalid password or whatever is the case, right? Invalid something, invalid. So I'll just leave it as invalid, so at least we can go ahead and verify the message, right? So in this case, I don't want all through 2 or 3. I'm just gonna say then I should see. I should see something. I don't know what I will see, but I will just go ahead and name it like this. I should see something, right? So let's go ahead and create a step and put it in here. Notice we put it like this. I'm gonna say I should see the text. This text we're looking for, so at least we can copy this. This is your expected result. So I'm gonna say you're seeing something, right? So let's go back to your action right here, but first we have to find the locator. So in this case, we're gonna say page, oh, sorry, public web element. We gotta locate the web element. And I can say this is basically warning. So I'm gonna go ahead and find the locator for the warning. So we can actually locate this warning message, right? Warning P, all right? Warning with P, which is for paragraph. So we wanna check this, right? So then you see alert, classes alert, right? We have a system message. So if you really like don't know what to do, you can copy the locator. You can do this and you can see my system message deep, right? This goes directly to this specific text, right? So I'm gonna go ahead and copy this locator and I'm gonna just say web element, alert box message. So it's gonna grab the message, right? So get, I'm just gonna say relatively get. So it will go ahead and get the message. So at least it is relatively name. I'm gonna say return. In this case, no, not the message yet. Okay, so just say alert box because this is a web element, right? So, you know what? I'm just gonna say this string, right? Because the reason why this is gonna be a string return because it's not going to be web element. It's going to be giving me the return of the web the text from the browser dot find element by dot in this case CSS locator. This is your locator. I'm just going to say get text, okay? And that's it. Get text does what? Give you the text, and we're just going to say return. And it is perfectly healthy and happy, and it's working. It's because even though we see the different data type, because the return for get text is actually it's string, right? Whenever you use method get text, it will always it will give you a string. Okay, so just keep in mind. The next thing that you want to do is that obviously, this message may arrive a little bit late, so you do want to add a safety mechanism to it, which is WebDriver wait, and you want to make sure this is wait until this visibility. So you can say 60-second. All you have to do is change these locator, okay, and that's all you have to do. Okay, that's it. So you just added a safety mechanism there for your locator. I'm going to go back to action. And then the next thing I want to do is public void. I would say verify message, verify alert message. And I'm just going to say string text, whatever text, right? So text is not being provided here. I'm just going to say locator. And I'm just going to say alert something, get alert message. And all I have to do is that this text right here is the expected result, right? Expected text. So I'm going to say expect, I'm going to name it expected text. And this gives me the actual text. This is an actual text. So I'm going to say something like string. Oops, it's automatically typing for me. 1 second. Actual actual text, because that is something we're grabbing directly from the browser. So now that I have actual and expected, I can say something like this, assert equal. So I can say the first one is expected. So this is your expected string. And the second one is actual, which is the actual string. So it will compare both. Now I'll take this thing, go into our step definition, and we're good to go. In this case, I will go ahead and use this class. And now we have to only provide expected. Okay, so we only have to provide expected string, and that's it. Okay. So as a user, we're providing expected string, and then internally it is also validating with actual string. Actual string is coming directly from the browser. Okay. So we're not just making things up. We go in here, and now all I have to do is make sure that we're looking for this text. This is our expected result, right? And we'll put it. So the question is, you just copied it from here. Of course, it's going to work. Yes, but the next time a developer make change and they do make a mistake, it will catch if it's not this, right? That is the idea, right? So just keep in mind. I'm going to run this real quick. And if it works, we're good to go. But we'll also test our own test to make sure it's doing the right thing. All right, and it's probably done. It's not closing the browser because, yeah, you didn't ask for it. And we may have an issue because this shouldn't take this long. Okay, let's see how long it waits. And we have to fix it, right? So anytime you write a test and you come across this kind of issues with your test, you can't panic and say, I'm going to call customer service. You are going to be your own customer service or tech support, whatever you want to call. You will have to Google it. You'll have to research it. You'll have to understand it. You have to learn it. You may have to go to Udemy. You know, it just by all means, like an engineer, a true engineer, or at least if you call yourself an engineer, it just means that you will be the person who's making things out of nothing, right? And so if you're making things out of nothing, really, you know, nobody's there to help you, right? You have to see what works for you, right? You have to see what fits in your need. So as you can see, element, this guy right here, value was not working. So we just want to see what we did wrong. So if I go to Command B, I go into this Command B, and then go inside of this, and you can see CSS locator, which is this, but then this guy is an ID. So that's where the problem is. I'm going to replace this as CSS locator because initially we did copy the CSS locator, right? But then we're looking for an ID, which is not the right thing to do. So I'm going to go ahead and run it again, and this time it should pass. So again, like these little mistakes that I'm making now, you may think like, okay, it's working for such a long time and making these little things and little mistakes. Trust me, when you are a programmer or when you write this automated test, you're going to make these little mistakes. You never make big mistakes, right? You'll probably forget to write, you know, semicolons or something. These are always going to be smaller mistakes that you'll be making. But anyway, your test passed right now. As you can see, one test passed. So let's go back and convert this into a like scenario outline. So I'll just go ahead and copy this thing and paste it right here. So since it's already working, and so we have the scenario outline, we need to undo this example. So notice that we just have to change this message to expected text. That's it. So notice my plan for this test also changed while I was writing this test here. And it's because, again, like when we write our test, we always want to make sure that, you know, if we need to make slight modifications to make sure that we're doing the right thing without automation, that's totally fine, right? So there were a bunch of extra steps that we removed, but here we have it, right? So in this case, so if I want to make this work, I know that header is username, so this is going to be username. All I have to do is this, okay? Parameterization, which is this, right? And that's it. Password is going to be password right here. And so I'm just providing the variable, which is gonna be table level or local variable in this case. Expected text is gonna be this, right? And this is gonna be expected text right there. Now expected text has to come from somewhere. And so we're gonna put that right here. It's no longer true. So because all of these things are invalid, we are expecting the same outcome. The same thing is gonna say password or username do not match. If I run this, how many times do you think it's gonna run? Right now?
5 times.
Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4 times.
Oh,
This one, including this one, is 5 times. So if you're saying this one too, then it's gonna be 5 times.
then
So I'm gonna
4.
go, yeah. So it's gonna be 4 times. I'm gonna run this real quick and then show you guys what's really happening. Just keep in mind the browser is never gonna close because we don't have a method created for closing browser. So when it's done, it'll visit again from scratch. It'll enter some garbage and then do the same thing, and it'll do the same thing again and again and again. So now if you wrote login test cases, which is 23, 20, 24, or 50 test cases, 60 test cases, 70 test cases, somehow your test is always going to look like this with the data is going to be being different at the bottom. Okay, if this test case has the right username, right password, all I have to do is put the right message and it'll check, and that's what it is, guys. In this case, you're all for scenario pass. Okay, and so in Cucumber, yes, you got the scenario outline and scenarios. Notice the acceptance criteria. How many people remember acceptance criteria now? Anybody that don't remember? Okay, so let's look at the acceptance criteria initially. This is what you got from your BA. Okay, this is what you got from your manager. Whatever is the case, this acceptance criteria was given to you and asked to write test cases, and you ended up writing this. Was it a correct or was it not correct? So this is what you were given and this is what you wrote. Okay, did you do the right thing or wrong thing? What do you guys think?
You did the right thing.
Yeah, because acceptance criteria is roughly in plain English, and then they themselves don't know the coding structure. They don't know what is possible and what is not possible, right? So when we were implementing it, we realized what is possible and we implemented it. So now the next time when they give you another test case that is similar structure, you're just gonna have to substitute this one with this one, right? Because this already exists, right? So you'll have to see which steps already exist and can be reused before even creating a new step. You are asked to reuse, period. It's not like, oh no, I'm gonna showcase my work, I'm gonna create a new step. It's never gonna be like that. They're gonna tell you like, hey, why did you write this line? We already have a step, can you use it? And they're gonna tell you because you're gonna write your code and you're gonna submit it for review, and they're gonna say, seems like we have a line for this a specific method that you wrote, and we want this to be reused. Okay, and you will find you'll be like, oh my god, I wrote this thing within like, it took me half a day and I did so much better, and they still want me to like discard all of my changes and they want me to reuse. And you may feel like, oh wow, I did all this work, but then what they're thinking is that you're creating more work for them. You're creating future work by adding more code. The less code is better. You know what I'm saying? Whenever you write test automation, the less code you write is much better, because less code means less maintainability, like less maintenance in your automation. Okay, so that's the way it's going to be. And the only way you can have less code is by reusing and making your test as much as reusable as possible. So notice here, at this level is reusable, right? You can just change the parameter here. Then you go inside of the method. Here is reusable. You can actually call this guy down here somewhere else if you need to. And it's reusable because it takes a parameter. Then you go into the next level. This one is reusable because it takes a parameter. Then you go into the next level, and this one is reusable because it takes a parameter. So you can see that you never have to write a piece of code twice and copy and paste it, because you're always going to be able to call them wherever you want to call them at whatever angle you need to. So just keep that in mind. Reusability is the key for test automation. Otherwise, what's going to happen is you're going to have a lot of massive amount of code that you need a separate team to come in and help you maintain this code. And after a few weeks, or maybe after some time, your code is going to be no longer going to be relevant, because you cannot keep up with the application change. As developers are making changes, you cannot keep up because it takes so much time to update your tests as the application changes daily basis. Okay. With that said, I'll let you guys go. It's 10:38. The next class, we're going to do more Cucumber until people feel more and more confident. Like I said, Cucumber is probably going to be for the next couple of class. Before we go to the GitHub, we can start pushing probably GitHub in the next class. We need to learn GitHub, how to push code and pull code, how to create a review, like in GitHub, because your code has to be reviewed by somebody, right, at work. And how do you even push your code so somebody can review, right? So we'll talk about all of that in the next class. Probably I'm going to spend the 30 minutes on the GitHub, and then after that we move forward doing more Cucumber stuff. In the meantime, if you can practice Cucumber, that'll be great. For those who already have your resume and your script, I will speak to you on Sunday to see whether you're ready or not. And like I said, automation wise, at least if you can feel like you can do at least 20% right now, we are good to go, right? Once you get the job, you'll have plenty of time to increase and learn more from Udemy, as well as your class, your teammates, right? So at work, you get training as well. So don't forget about that. Once you join, they don't expect you to come in and all of a sudden learn or start writing code in a framework that you never worked, right? They will have to give you some overview of the framework itself and say, okay, this is how we do things. We have action class where we write methods. We have locator class where we write locators, which is web elements. And they'll guide you through some of the, if you get good teammates, but if you have a lead, they're supposed to guide you. If you have a manager, they're supposed to guide you. But regardless of that, you should be fine because in the beginning of the first couple of months, automation is almost impossible to do, right? It could be somebody with 10 years of experience because you don't know the product, okay? So at least you'll have a couple of months to catch up and be able to write some automated test. Also, keep in mind, we're not looking for some position that requires automation on the day one, right? We're looking for positions where they are flexible with automation and they give you time to grow, right? And that's why we're looking more on the QA analyst side. All of your resume that you have, you'll see QA analyst, okay? QA analyst, and you don't have QA engineer position. All right, any question, guys?
I guess not.
We're clear.
Okay. Arfa,
we're
do you
good.
have your resume, or
Oh, no, I did not receive anything.
Okay, I'll send it to you because, especially, you, Zinnia, you guys should be well ready before, anybody else, honestly. Just start looking for jobs, because unless you really experience what it's like out there, talk to recruiters and set up interview, you will always be scared, right? So I'll send you the resume soon.
Thank you.
You're welcome. All right, guys, good night.
Good night.
Thank you. Good night.